The Great White Shark. The great white shark can weigh between 1,500 and 2,400 pounds, and computer models published by researcher Rowe and colleagues in 2008 estimate that a large 20-foot great white can exert nearly 4,000 pounds of bite force, enough to shear through bone and thick cartilage in a single closing of its jaw. It hits speeds of 25 miles per hour, launching its entire body completely out of the ocean in a single explosive attack called a breach, and it has ruled the open ocean for over 16 million years with virtually no natural predator, making it one of the longest-reigning apex hunters in evolutionary history. But one well-documented reflex becomes its downfall. When flipped upside down, a shark enters tonic immobility, a state of temporary paralysis where its muscles simply stop responding, and orcas have absolutely mastered exploiting it. Documented cases off the coasts of California and South Africa show orcas intentionally ramming great whites at full speed, flipping them onto their backs, holding them down until they suffocate, and then surgically removing and eating their nutrient-rich livers, leaving the rest of the carcass untouched. The same nervous system that makes the shark the ocean's most efficient hunter is the exact system that shuts its entire body down. One flip, one freeze. That's all it takes to end 16 million years of dominance. The polar bear. The polar bear shares the title of largest land carnivore with the Kodiak brown bear, with males routinely reaching 800 to 1,300 pounds, and exceptional specimens hitting 1,500 pounds or more, putting them among the heaviest land predators on the planet. Their sense of smell is legendary. They can sniff out a seal's breathing hole buried under 3 feet of snow and ice from roughly a mile away, detecting prey that's completely invisible to the eye. For millions of years, the Arctic gave this animal everything it needed to dominate without challenge. But polar bears are classified as marine mammals specifically because they depend entirely on sea ice to hunt ringed and bearded seals, and that single dependence is their fatal weakness. When ice melts earlier each year, bears are forced onto land where they must survive off fat reserves alone, often for months at a stretch. Satellite tracking data from the U.S. Geological Survey has recorded polar bears swimming continuously for days across hundreds of miles due to fragmented ice, causing severe weight loss and documented cub mortality among females making that same dangerous crossing. An animal capable of overpowering almost anything in the Arctic cannot overpower a melting platform disappearing beneath its own feet. Its greatest weakness isn't a rival predator, it's the ground itself vanishing. The lion. The lion earns its title as king of the savanna through raw cooperative power, prides hunting in coordinated groups capable of taking down prey many times their size, including buffalo and even young elephants, through strategy passed down within the group itself. Their roar can realistically hit 114 decibels and be heard up to 5 miles away, warning every rival predator in the territory exactly who's truly in charge of that stretch of land. No single predator on the savanna challenges a full-grown lion in direct, open combat. Yet that same pride structure conceals a serious hidden vulnerability documented extensively in conservation biology: genetic isolation. In pockets like the Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania, entire lion populations descend from just a handful of founding individuals due to geographic isolation, leaving almost no genetic diversity to draw from when conditions turn against them. This lack of diversity makes prides incredibly vulnerable to disease outbreaks that healthier, more varied populations could otherwise resist. In 1994, a canine distemper virus outbreak wiped out 1/3 of the entire Serengeti lion population in a matter of weeks, a collapse scientists still study today. The lion's social hierarchy, the very system that built its dominance, also means its survival hinges on the genetic health of one tightly connected group. Remove that diversity, and the king loses everything almost overnight. The Bengal tiger. The Bengal tiger generates an absolute bite force around 1,000 pounds per square inch, capable of snapping vertebrae instantly, and while jaguars actually hold the highest bite force relative to body size, an adaptation built specifically for crushing through turtle shells, the tiger's massive size gives it one of the strongest absolute bites of any big cat alive. It can leap horizontally up to 25 to 30 feet and moves through dense jungle in near total silence, its stripes breaking up its outline so effectively that prey often doesn't react until it's already too late to escape. Despite ruling as the jungle's most feared hunter, the tiger's fatal weakness isn't physical strength, it's territorial space. A single male Bengal tiger requires a home range of roughly 60 to 100 square kilometers depending on local prey density, and defends that range fiercely against any rival male. Because forests across India and Nepal are increasingly fragmented by human infrastructure like roads and farmland, young tigers seeking new territory are pushed into human-dominated landscapes, leading to fatal conflicts with older, established tigers or with people themselves. The same solitary instinct that makes it a perfect, efficient hunter becomes a serious liability the moment there's no longer enough space left to be solitary in. The Komodo dragon. The Komodo dragon was long believed to kill through bacteria-laden saliva that caused fatal infections in its prey over time, until research led by Dr. Brian Fry in 2009 proved it actually possesses specialized venom glands secreting toxic proteins that prevent blood clotting, sending prey into shock until it slowly bleeds out. It can sprint at speeds rivaling a human in short bursts and eats up to 80% of its own body weight in one single sitting, an extraordinary feeding capacity for any land animal. Few animals within its island habitat dare to challenge it directly. But the Komodo dragon's dominance is trapped entirely within a handful of remote Indonesian islands: Komodo, Rinca, Flores, and Gili Motong, an incredibly limited total range compared to almost any other apex predator on Earth. The IUCN Red List classifies the species as endangered, with a wild population hovering between 2,500 and 3,000 mature individuals total, a number small enough to track individually by conservationists. A single major volcanic eruption, tsunami, or invasive disease introduced on just one island could realistically wipe out a massive percentage of the entire species in one single event. Unlike predators spread safely across continents with room to adapt and migrate, the Komodo dragon's fatal weakness is geography itself, total power confined within a cage of islands it cannot escape. The wolf. The wolf hunts in highly coordinated packs capable of taking down prey many times their individual size, routinely traveling 20 to 30 or more miles a day while trekking across difficult, often frozen terrain in search of food. Under ideal atmospheric conditions in tundra or forest, a wolf's howl can travel up to 6 miles, coordinating attacks across vast, unforgiving landscapes long before the pack is ever within sight of its prey. This deep level of teamwork made wolves nearly unstoppable hunters across entire continents for thousands of years, with virtually no competing predator able to match their coordination. But long-term studies in places like Yellowstone National Park, where wolves were reintroduced in 1995 after decades of absence, reveal exactly where that strength collapses. A wolf pack functions as a tightly knit family unit built around an alpha breeding pair who serve as both parents and primary hunters for the entire group. When humans kill that alpha pair, the remaining pack frequently fractures entirely within weeks. Younger, inexperienced wolves often scatter, turn to easier livestock prey out of sheer desperation, or starve outright because they lack the coordinated strategy required to bring down large elk and bison. An animal whose entire power comes from social structure simply cannot survive long once that structure is broken, by humans, by disease, or by the sudden loss of its most experienced leaders. The peregrine falcon. The peregrine falcon is definitively the fastest animal on Earth. A National Geographic experiment using a skydiver and a trained falcon clocked a single dive, called a stoop, at 242 miles per hour, a speed no other living creature has ever matched in controlled testing. Its eyes feature two fovea, or visual centers, acting like natural telephoto lenses that let it spot prey from over a mile away while tracking multiple points of motion simultaneously. Absolutely nothing in the sky can outrun it once the chase begins. Yet hitting prey at 240 miles per hour requires immense structural engineering, and that same speed comes with brutal fragility built into every single dive it makes. A bad collision with a branch or an unexpected angle can break the falcon's own wings or breastbone instantly, with no margin for error at that velocity. The species also nearly vanished entirely in the mid-20th century. Between the 1950s and 1970s, agricultural runoff of the pesticide DDT caused biomagnification in birds of prey, interfering with calcium metabolism and thinning eggshells until they crushed under the weight of incubating parents, nearly driving the species extinct across all of North America. The fastest predator alive is also one of the most physically vulnerable creatures on this list, a hunter whose greatest weapon carries genuine, life-threatening risk every time it's actually used. The orca. The orca, often called the killer whale, sits at the very top of the entire ocean's food chain with no natural predator of its own anywhere on Earth. Orcas are among the few non-human animals known to rely heavily on cultural transmission. Different ecotypes, like resident versus transient populations, can live in the exact same waters yet never interact, because they speak entirely different vocal languages and follow entirely different hunting traditions passed down through generations. If a pod's matriarch dies, decades of highly specific knowledge, like how to safely beach themselves to catch sea lions off the coast of Patagonia, a technique only certain pods know, can be lost within a single generation. That cultural fragility is compounded by a second hidden weakness, bioaccumulation. As apex predators sitting at the very top of the food chain, orcas suffer extreme buildup of PCBs and other industrial toxins, which bind permanently to their blubber over an entire lifetime of feeding. When food grows scarce and they burn that blubber for energy, the stored toxins flood their bloodstream, attacking their immune systems and causing documented reproductive failure across multiple populations. The ocean's most intelligent apex predator depends entirely on inherited knowledge and a toxin-free environment to survive. Lose either one, and its dominance disappears along with it. The anaconda. The green anaconda is the heaviest snake in the world, reaching 15 to 18 feet long and weighing well over 200 pounds in mature females, and constricts prey through a terrifyingly precise method, matching the rhythm of its victim's heartbeat, tightening its coils every time the prey exhales until blood circulation is completely cut off, a process scientists call ischemia. Almost nothing in its wetland habitat can match that raw, calculated constricting power once it strikes and locks on. But the anaconda's fatal weakness comes directly from its own enormous size, digestion, and the severe toll it takes on its entire body afterward. To break down a massive kill like a capybara or white-tailed deer, the anaconda's metabolic rate spikes drastically, sometimes by several 100%, and internal organs like its heart and liver temporarily swell just to cope with the sudden energy demand. During the days or weeks it takes to fully dissolve that meal, the snake becomes physically heavy and incredibly slow, unable to swim or slither effectively enough to escape jaguars, caimans or humans approaching from any direction. The same enormous size that allows it to overpower nearly anything in its path also means recovering from a single meal leaves it dangerously exposed for far longer than almost any other apex predator on this entire list. The saltwater crocodile. The saltwater crocodile, known as a saltai, can exceed 20 feet in rare cases and weigh over 2,200 pounds, making it the largest living reptile on the entire planet by a significant margin. A landmark 2012 study by Drive Gregory Erickson measured its bite force at 3,700 pounds per square inch, the highest directly measured bite force of any living animal on Earth, surpassing every other predator ever recorded in controlled testing. It can survive for months without eating and ambushes prey with explosive bursts of speed launched from seemingly calm, still water where its presence is nearly impossible to detect. Few predators anywhere within its territory dare to approach it directly. Yet the crocodile's fatal weakness is rooted deep in its own biology. As an ectotherm, its body temperature matches its environment entirely, with no internal regulation of its own to fall back on. It relies on basking in direct sunlight just to raise its metabolic rate high enough to function at full capacity. If the weather drops below a certain threshold, its digestion halts completely, its muscles cannot fire with explosive speed, and it slips into a sluggish, vulnerable state that can last for extended periods. An apex predator holding the single strongest directly measured bite force on the entire planet is still completely hostage to something as simple and uncontrollable as local ambient temperature. The grizzly bear. The grizzly bear can easily reach 800 pounds or more, and despite that massive bulk, it can sprint in short bursts at speeds reaching 35 miles per hour, fast enough to outrun most prey across open terrain without ever needing to chase for long. Almost nothing in North American wilderness challenges a full-grown grizzly directly or survives the attempt, making it one of the continent's least contested apex predators. But the grizzly's fatal weakness is built directly into its own biology, in a biological state called hyperphagia. In late summer and autumn, grizzlies enter this intense feeding phase, eating up to 20,000 to 30,000 calories a day, nearly 10 times a typical human diet, just to pack on enough fat to survive hibernation. They rely heavily on a small number of concentrated seasonal food sources, salmon runs, whitebark pine nuts, or moth aggregations, to hit that demanding target before winter arrives. If a drought or wildfire destroys these localized food sources during those few critical weeks, bears enter their dens dangerously underweight, leading to sharply higher winter mortality rates, particularly among pregnant females who fail to give birth successfully or cannot produce milk for their cubs. The most powerful land predator in North America can still be quietly defeated by something as simple as one bad season at the wrong time of year.